rid of the cloud, that's fine. Okay, all right, now we are recording. I'm gonna go back to share screen over on my other account here. I'm gonna share my whole desktop. And here we go. So, and what I'm gonna do too is I'm going to actually expand this so that I can see these a little better. All right. I thought that we had some of these. All right, I'm going to start over here too. Let's look at a couple others from previous semesters. This is a project that was also created for this for project 1, and this is done with just you know, layers of black and white, and then here there are more layers. This is actually a kaleidoscope. This was a brooch that was done obviously in layers, and you can see where it's riveted. These pieces actually turn. Here is another cool piece. You can see again, we use that technique with the engraving, and here she used ink. This is another piece where we had a different material involved in it, and she created this knotwork that allowed it to hang. I believe that this was a pendant. This piece was done with multiple layers and then a thick ribbon knotted through. It was actually very flexible. Really interesting piece. This also, again, layers. This did not move, but it was really interesting as far as, you know, what it looked like from different angles. You can see. This is a pretty simple one. You see, we just have 2 layers. We have the flowers and then the middle part of it. This is multi-layers as well. We have leaves, and then the idea of different colors on the leaves, which are overlaid with another layer of acrylic in a different color. There was also a pendant or a pin to go with it, I think. And this gives you a closer look at how it was created. This was a fun one. These were riveted together. Another 3-dimensional form created with layers. This was pretty simple and a good example of how you could create a form. I would say you need to keep this pretty simple because I'm going to show you a piece that happened last semester that was inspired by this, but got a little too complicated. And again, it can be something as simple as this. I like the fact that this student decided to work outside the box as far as materials. Also, this was not, these 3 vertical pieces were not glued in place. They were able to be moved, creating different patterns that you could view. Oh, this is the other project. So I'm going to move down a little teeny bit. Okay, so this is another layers project. A pin, and it had a piece there. This window actually has like 3 layers to it. There's the frame, there's the blue part with the white that she used ink over top of, and then also had these kind of cuts in the blue, and then the last layer has got this the ink over the engraving technique that I've been talking about. Here is the back of that, the very back actually. So there was another layer behind it. Yeah, this is a piece, kind of a skyline. Oh, sorry, I thought there was another photo of it afterwards. And this one, there were slits in the bottom piece where the buildings could be set into the slits, and then you could look at it from several different angles, and it appeared as if the buildings were in relationship to one another. This piece entrapped a couple of glass beads inside that were kind of to represent eggs, and this is like a bird's nest. Each of these layers was actually identical except for the very top and the very bottom, and they were just arranged in a pattern to create these wings on the outside of the piece. This was a really fun piece using a lot of the engraving technique, and just 2 other pieces held in place by rivets. And of course it opened and closed. This is what it looks like closed. Here it is open. Okay, here's another one. You can see how with 3 layers of clear on the bottom, there were slits placed in, and then there's just 1, 2, 3, 4 layer, 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of acrylic, and then just 1 other little piece here glued to the very front one to simulate the edge of a wave. Oh, and we're into the second. Again, I do apologize. I'm kind of going through this example. This is all like second project work. Oh, and here is last semester's stuff. This is one that was created that had some movement. You can see he's got rubber bands holding things together. It worked pretty well at Crit, I want to say. And here we'll let it see if I can get this to play. There we go. This was really fun in that, let's play it again. You could turn the little shaft, and here we'll look at that again. This shaft here, whoop, sorry. We're gonna zoom in here. There, the bottom of the shaft holding the, or axle holding these pinwheels at the top had a, this is square, by the way, this is square stock, it's not round. So with this square, he built these little gears that interact with one another right here. So by turning this gear turned, and that's how he created the movement. Okay, and so, and here are some more photos of the pieces. This is the piece that was actually inspired by that yellow bottle sort of thing. And here we are getting back into, here's another piece that this was a couple of mirrored pieces. And again, we've got hinges that work in opening and closing this piece. And yeah, it's just these 3. You can see this is what it looks like open. And but if you zoom in, you see that there's also a seam here in an opaque, this opaque acrylic, and then here's what the opaque acrylic looks like open. And the very back of it is this clear. You can see that there is some subtle patterns on here, and there were definitely engraved patterns on that cream colored opaque part. But let's see if we can get to that. It kind of looks like a face, if I recall. Yeah, sort of like a moon face. If I recall correctly, this has something to do with a particular video game, but I don't really, I'm not that familiar with it, so I can't speak to its accuracy or what video game. So here again is that snake piece that we were looking at. And here is the other piece of the this layered doodle piece. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. Let me escape. Actually, I think I have to do that over here. View options. Wow. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Yes, I do. And we're going to go to that isn't what I wanted. Okay, we're going to go back to my screen. Here we go. Okay. Oh, and now I'm back at, I do have to, okay, we're going to stop sharing. Okay, so let's talk about the, looks like my canvas got, there we go. So I'm going to go here. We're going to go into project one layers. And I gotta find this file. Okay, and I'm not seeing it. That's fine. Okay, let's go back to the syllabus and we'll talk about the dates for our for project one. And let me go back to sharing the screen. And here we go. Share. So here's where we're at. So today we are, I'm giving you the intro. I'm going to do a demonstration in a little while, but I want to get this. So we're going to meet on Monday, and we're also going to have sketches for project one. You guys have seen a lot of inspiration around what can happen with this project. So that's important to think about, but you could, and obviously you don't want to copy these things, but you can get an idea of what the potential is. You can do a three-dimensional object. You can do just an object you hold in your hand. You can do something decorative. You can do something wearable. The idea though is to think about layers. Okay, so that's going to be sketches are due on Monday. We're going to do a laser cutting demo. And that may happen on Monday, but because it's our first day in the studio, we'll probably not be able to get to it because we do have to go over some policies, and I do want to get that chair exercise demo in. But if possible, I may do the laser cutting demo that is scheduled for the 31st on the 24th. So that relates to project one. We're going to introduce project two before project one is due. And I think I spoke about this last week in our first run through the syllabus, but we're going to have our critique for project one on the 9th of February. So that's just a few weeks away. And, but I'll introduce project two on the 7th. Which is, 2 days before that. I just want you to start to know what's coming next. But that is when we have the critique though. So the laser cutting needs to be done. You have those 2 Mondays, which is why I'd really, really like to get the laser cut demo next Monday instead of the following Monday. I kind of had to move it around a little bit because of our not being in person until the 24th. Normally I would do it around the 24th. So if we can get that in there, then this way you have the 31st to get your piece cut. And you also have the 7th to get your piece cut. The introduction to project two, the cast ring, is not going to take very long. And we'll do that on then, and we're also going to laser cut that day. So I'd like you to have your pieces ready to cut by the 31st, if possible. So this is a pretty quick, it's got a short fuse, in other words. This is a quick project. We don't have a great deal of time for it, and that is because most of the semester is going to get used on your ring and for rendering. But the ring is a long process, and there's a lot of steps to it, and it's going to it's going to be the piece that you're going to learn the most from throughout the course of this semester. So we have to really give that as much time as we can, especially because we're working against fall break right before crits. So we have a lot to get done in that, or not fall break, spring break. We've got spring break in the middle of actually in the middle of this project, and that's one of the issues that we are up against. I apologize, I meant the spring break. My brain is still wishing it was in the fall, I guess. So here we are. The critique for project 1 is scheduled to be on the 9th of February. If it seems like we need an extra week, we'll do that. But spring break happens right at the end of February. And at this point, we want to make sure that we're getting our 3D prints along and ready, because we only have 1 day a week in the studio. That does cut down on our time. But there we go. That's our basic dates here. I'm going to put a page up in Canvas about what these dates are, so that you have them all in one spot too. I didn't get to that before today's class, but I wanted you to know that that will be there. And we, as I mentioned, because we check the syllabus every day that we come in for every day for class, I'll keep you reminding you of these milestones that you have to meet. So our first milestone in this project is Monday. I want you to start to have sketches. And you're probably all going, oh my gosh, I don't even know how Rhino works. How am I going to do sketches? Do them in the paper. That's fine. We'll talk about how to put them into Rhino in a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. And before I stop recording, do we have any questions? Anybody got any questions? Let's see.
How many layers are required for the project? Because you've talked about how this is a layering project, but how many layers do we have to have for it?
So it does not, there is no particular number. It depends on your project. Okay, you don't have to, there is no, I mean, obviously if it's layers, you would want it to be 1, but you saw that snake piece, that didn't really, in some ways it almost didn't have layers. Really what the layer was for that was the engraving on it, which kind of counts as a layer as well, because the file for that piece had a layer for engraving and a layer for cutting. All right, so no minimum, no maximum either. I mean, if you want to do like 10 layers of something, be aware it's going to get pretty thick, but if that's what you're wanting it to be, then that'll work. Oh yeah, I just realized that I can show myself too. So any other questions? No. Okay, I am gonna stop recording for right now. And wait a minute, cancel and pausing, resume recording. Okay. So now we're going to talk about designing for project 1, or just designing to use for the laser cutter. Basically what we're going to start with are curves. We're really mainly going to work in the 1 viewport, because the lines exercise that we did this past week, if you were working generally in the top viewport, all of the things that you did showed up on the XY axes, or construction plane. All right, or as I like to colloquially call it, the floor. Okay, so when you're working here, we can create all kinds of fun lines. And if you notice, everything, when we're working in the top viewport, all the stuff that we build ends up on the XY plane. And remember, there's this like little icon in the lower corner of the perspective viewport that you can see changes when you move things around. Okay. Remember, with the 3-button mouse, to move things around, you're going to click on the right button. That is usually, if you're right-handed, your middle finger on your right hand. If you are left-handed and use your mouse with your left hand, you can go in and change the mouse controls. You can find that in, I think it's under Tools and Options. Okay, and you can see that we've got, oh, so many options. Keyboard, mouse, here we go. So mouse, you can enable click and hold context. There's the method is the combo mouse. Oh, combo is like crossing and oh, I thought there was somewhere. I may be thinking of another 3D modeling program. And it may be that you have to do that in Windows. Okay. Anyway, if you're left-handed and you're having an issue with your mouse, let me know. We can work that out when we sit down one-on-one. So, all right, here I am. I'm working in. So for the reason that we're mainly just using 2-dimensional materials for this project, we can just work in the top viewport. So double click on your top viewport, and here's where you're going to work. So let's say I wanted to do some flowers. I'm going to create a flower petal. All right, maybe we'll have a little bit of a divot in the end here. And okay, so this is a closed curve. When I click on it, control points appear. All right, I can manipulate those control points to play with the shape of that form. There we go. Maybe we'll want to move this down a little bit that way. All right, we'll move this guy over here. All right. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to use a command called polar array. And I'm going to give you just different random commands while I'm working. These often come up later in your lessons. Some of them may not. Some of them may be new to you. There are hundreds and hundreds of commands in Rhino, if not thousands. There may be thousands. And so when I introduce a new command, it's not that you were required to know this, or it's just specific for the particular example I'm giving you. And it's just so you can be exposed to more commands. So I'm going to go with array polar. You can see I started to type in the command line and it tried to figure out what it was that I was looking for. And there's array whole polar. That's a different command than what I want. Array polar is here. So now the command line is asking me a question. So where is the center of the polar array? Press enter to use the C-plane origin. What's the C-plane origin? Anybody got a guess? Origin. What do you think? No guesses? The C-plane origin is here. It is 0, 0, 0. And so if we hit enter, then that's what it would use. You see how a little point appeared there? Now, how many of these items do I want in this polar array? Let's say the default is 3. Let's change that number, and I can change it by just typing another number in here. This is how the command line works. 6. I'm going to hit enter, and then it's asking me again. Boy, this command is really needy, isn't it? It wants a lot of information. So the angle to fill, or the first reference point, 360 degrees. Okay, that sounds good to me. And by the way, because my mouse was up here, that's why that circle ended up. So you can actually change this around with your mouse, but right now we're going to say 360 and we're just going to hit enter. And now it's giving me a preview. 6 of these petals around this origin point looks like this. Is that okay with you? And if it is okay, press enter to accept. If I don't like it, I can hit escape and get out of here. But I like that. I think it looks good. So there we go. That's, wow, cool. But you know what? If I sent this to the laser cutter right now, it's going to cut it into all these pieces. And I'm going to have this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece. And this thing is going to come out like a little jigsaw puzzle with this circle in the middle cut out. And I wonder if there's a way we can use to merge these together. There's actually a whole lot of different ways. One of which is trim. Okay, that's a command we find over here. It's a pretty basic command. There's also split, but let's start with trim. So what this command line, man, it's asking me another question. Select cutting objects. Okay, let's cut with one of these petals. Now press enter when done. Okay. Now, what object do I want to trim? How about if we want to trim everything inside here? Look, it's gone. And that's fine. Now, suppose I click, now that trimmed away everything outside of it. We didn't want that. Let's undo. Remember, Control Z is undo. If you're on a Mac, it's Command Z. But I'm going to undo this whole thing and I'm going to escape out of, yep. And I, by the way, keep on record history. That's a command down here. I don't remember if the Rhino interface lesson mentions record history, but I keep it up and you'll see why later probably. I don't know if this exercise is going to show it. Here's another way of cleaning up. Instead of having to like select each of these and cut in between, we could also split. Let's select all of them. And then if we go split, actually, let's not select anything. Let's just start the command and see what it's asking for. Select objects to split. I want to split all of these. So I selected all of those. You can see they're selected. I press enter. Okay, so what are the cutting objects? Let's select all of them again. Enter. So now, it didn't work the way I thought it would. That's annoying because I've done this before, but whoop, that's my command history. I was going to take a look back, but all right. But the best, the very, very best command for this type of situation where I want these to be where I want these to come together is Boolean or curve Boolean, C-U-R-V-E, Boolean. Okay. Click inside regions to keep. Oh, I have to escape. Sorry, I needed to. Oh, by the way, let me see if I can show you an example of that history. This was our original petal, right? And we created a polar array and it asked where the center was, and that was the origin right here. So suppose we take this and move it. Look what happened. Everything updated. And now they're all centered on that. They're still all centered. So if I straighten that out, see how they're all updating? Record history is really, really powerful. Okay, I keep record history on all the time. It does take up a lot of memory, but it's a real, and it might be hard to run in remote access. So keep record history on when you're in the CAD lab, because our computers can totally handle it. The internet connections when you're connecting to the remote labs, Temple's remote labs, may slow things down a lot because you have record history on. But That's pretty cool, huh? I'm going to undo a little bit because I like this one. Not so much the original one. The original one, I feel like there's too much of an overlap. And then when we cut away all this extra inside, it's really not going to have as much of a flowery look. So I'm now going to move this again. We're going to move this up this way. I kind of like that. So let's go here. And now we're going to pull up curve Boolean because I'm happier with these flower petals now. Curve Boolean. Now understand, when I pulled up curve Boolean, I had all this selected already. So it knew what I wanted to work with. But if I didn't have it selected, it's going to ask me curve. And you can see I can actually use the arrow keys right now instead of my mouse to move up and down this list of suggestions. To be honest, Rhino is pretty smart. At least I've trained it really well from all my years of using it. And it seems like it's pretty close at guessing what I'm starting to type when it gives me those suggestions from the command line. So curve Boolean, select curves. I'm going to select them all. Now look at these options I have. Delete input, combine the regions, output curves, simplify curves. So you can see that delete input, no, it's not deleting anything of what I'm using. I can change that by clicking on it. I can ask it to delete what gets used, or all or none. Let's leave it on none, that's fine. And now combine regions, yes, this is one of the most powerful things about curve Boolean. Again, you can see that there are options here, but combine regions, we want to keep it yes. Output is curves. There are other options for that too. It could be a surface, or then we've got simplify curves, and that's fine too, because that'll help us with the number of points left on these curves. And I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but I just want you to see that, you know, most of Rhino's commands have got these options that make these tools very powerful. So click inside regions I want to keep. I want to keep the outside edge. Is that all I want? I could do this too. Look at that. But will that work? This will cut straight through here. And then these pieces are only going to be held together by this little bit. Although that's pretty, I don't think it's practical. So we're going to like leave those alone. I could just cut out that middle too, though. That might be cute. Let's leave it at that. Now I'm going to hit enter. And what happened? It looks like things are still there. Well, you see how you have yellow, the outside curve and the inside curve? Let's just drag those away using the gumball tool. And that's what the curve Boolean created for me. All right, that's great. By the way, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make, this is going to be a cut layer. I'm going to call it cut layer back. And then I'm also going to have just a work geometry is what I'm going to call this. Work geometry. That's my the white layer here. Right now, I'm going to make this the active layer, the cut layer back. And I'm going to take this and move that over there. See, I just selected it. I'm going to right click on cut layer back. And we're going to change that object layer to that. See how it's red now? This is work geometry. This is geometry that I'd like to get back to again if I want it. Remember, I used that to make the curve Boolean, to use curve Boolean here. So I'm actually just going to put that over here in work geometry. And I'm going to change the object layer. I'm going to hide that layer. Cool, huh? All right, let's take this and we're going to move this. I'm going to type in MOVE. And I'm going to move it from about the center here. And the point to move to, I can either go over here and move it where I want it, or I can put in 0, 0, 0. That is our origin point. And that's where it's at. All right, so that's the back layer. So now we're going to do the next layer. We're going to call it middle layer. You can see that the main reason that this project is called layers is because it's to get you thinking about organizing, and the layers don't necessarily have to be the material as much as using it here in our layers menu. So I'm going to make this next layer the our active layer. And what that means, the active layer, is that any new geometry or any new objects or work that I do here in Rhino is going to end up in this layer. In the meantime, I can hide the cut layer back. Some people just keep the numbers and they can keep track of the numbers in their head, but I like to name things that mean something to me, because sometimes you have many, many layers in a file. And I know that when I'm working on things, sometimes I don't touch things for weeks, months. Claire, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
I was just wondering, while we're designing this, should we keep in mind the size?
Yes. Yes, you should. Totally. Let's take a peek. That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that, because I was going to like bring all that up at the end and talk about how giant this is. But let's take a look at what I have here. How big is this? I am working in inches. You can see that from the bottom. And because I'm working in inches, that means each of these squares is an inch. So I'm looking at about 6 inches wide, about 6 inches wide. I can get exact measurements on that by using a command called bounding box. So I'm selecting these things. I'm going to type in the command line, bounding box, and it's asking me what I want to output. Let's say curves. Let's leave it on curves. And it built a box. Notice that it ended up purple because we built new geometry. We're going to delete this anyway. But what's more important, besides the fact that you can look and see visually where your bounds are on this, up here in the command line, and remember this command history we can look at, we can scroll all the way back, but up here in the command line, it told me where, what the dimensions are of this. So it's not wide at all. It doesn't have any sort, or not height in the z-axis at all. And remember, that's because it's totally flat. It's laying on the ground. And so 0 height, that's the z-axis, right? Then it's 6.156 wide and 6.356 high. And there we are. So that gives you an idea of size. So what are the limitations of size for this project? There really aren't any, but we have clear acrylic for you. You each get about a 12 by 12 of acrylic, clear acrylic. Maybe a little more if you need it, maybe a little less if you don't need all that. You also, if you want color, you'll have to buy that. So your limitation isn't necessarily by the project. It is by the bed of the laser cutter and by how much material you have to work with. I would initially try to design something that's less than 12 by 12. Okay, you saw that a lot of the pieces, were like earring size, this size. The biggest piece that that I had was, I'll bring that up, because now that I think of it, I don't think it was in the folder that I showed you. The wine glass piece that didn't come together very well, that I was alluding to. I'll show you that. But really, I guess that there's not a size limitation so much as there are specifications that you have to work within. The laser cutter, and actually we have 2 of them in MJCC that we can use. We mainly use the smaller one, and the bed size for that, let me delete here, is 12 by 16, if I recall correctly. So before we get too much further, let's go back to the top viewport. Let's put that down. So I just pulled up a rectangle, other corner or length. Let's make it 16. And then the other corner or length, let's make that 12. Okay. So this is approximately the bed size of the laser cutter. So as you can see, I totally could work with this piece. It's, 6 inches, and it's a great idea to have rulers with you when you're working in CAD. It's very easy to get lost in scale, because a lot of times people just sit down and start modeling and not even realize, first of all, what units they're in. It's always important to work in the one you're most comfortable. If you really think in millimeters, or you really think in centimeters, like if you can go, I know that much is a centimeter, and you can feel it. I'm an inch person. I know inches much better than I do. It's what I grew up with. And so I like to use inches. I'm pretty comfortable with millimeters as well. As a jeweler, you get used to that kind of thing because there is a lot of metric out there, especially a lot of stones are mostly measured in metric. But it's up to you. It's up to you. Whatever units you work in, try to be real consistent, because if you go swapping around, you'll just end up confused, especially when you have to make something real out of it. Now, for a lot of the exercises that you're going through as part of CAD 1, you'll find that sometimes they'll tell you to make a millimeters file. Sometimes they'll have you open a file and it's centimeters. Sometimes they'll have you open a file and it's feet. You can do all kinds of different units with Rhino. But in the end, choose the units that you're most comfortable with. Okay, that another little, side. There are so many aspects to this, to working in CAD. But here we go. So that I'm going to take one of these layers, and I'm gonna call it laser cutter bed. So that way I know I'm not gonna design anything that won't fit in the laser cutter bed, because that really is the only hard limitation that we've got. So I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to change that object layer, and you see now it's green. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to move it over here, like over top of where my things are. And understand, if I'm using different colors or different sheets of acrylic that I'm cutting, I could have like 3 different colors. And so I can get real big and utilize most of that bed if I want to. Long answer to a very good question. All right, so we've got this. Let's do our middle layer now. And the middle layer, I'm gonna do, let's just freehand that middle layer with, let's say I'm gonna do the back one with like red acrylic. I have a bunch of red acrylic. Now these are not perfect, right? To me, flowers are never perfect, but they are perfect in their imperfection. Flower petals tend to have this organic quality, right? And just click there, and that's closed. Now, when I click on it, there's those points. So I can fix some of this. You don't always get it right the first time. Oh, there we go. I'm going to take this guy. And so I'm using the gumball tool to move things around. With the gumball tool, there'll be a whole lesson on gumball, not gumbo, making me hungry. There'll be a whole lesson on the gumball later, but it's a really powerful tool that can help you move things just in one direction. If you're dragging the arrows, right? I click on here, click on that, and I'm going to drag this arrow. It'll help me move things only in that axis. That's the X direction. It also, if I select something that can be scaled, I can use these boxes to scale it. again, I can scale in that direction. If I hold down Shift while scaling, it'll scale the whole thing. All right, but okay, so there's let's just make this guy a little bit fatter. So I'm going to choose 2 of these. The other thing you can do is you can rotate those little arcs that show up. I'm going to scale that out a little. Take this guy, move it out. All right, that's kind of cool. Looks like one of those 1970s chunky flowers. So there we go. So that'll be our second layer. And then we're going to just have one, and then this will be our top layer. And that's the blue. And I think with that, I am just going to put a really simple, I'm going to use a circle. I'll make it just a basic circle. And I'm going to, it's asking me in the command line where I want to put the center. I'm going to put that in our origin point. That's 0, 0, 0. And those are coordinates. Our origin starts here. So anything up this way is in the Y direction. Anything off this way is in the X direction, or the minus X direction, or the minus Y direction. But 0, 0, 0 is right there in the middle. That's why they call it the origin. So that's where I want to have that go. I'm going to hit enter. And now you can see with my mouse, I can choose how big I want this to be. Now, because I have that opening in the back, let's say I'm planning this for 3 different colors. And I'm going to also make this into a pendant. So with that in mind, I'm going to take this red, and I'm going to make this spot a little bit bigger. I'm going to delete this point and move this over because I want this to be pretty strong. And over here, and I'm going to change this, make that my active layer. Also going to put a little circle here. And this is where I'm going to hang like maybe a jump ring. Let's see how big. So if I'm going to put a jump ring through there, how big should I make this circle? It's asking me here for diameter. I can use the mouse to input that diameter, or I can actually just type in a number. Let's say 0.25 because I'm in inches. If I make that a 1/4 inch, there we go. That's decent. Might want to be a little bit closer to the edge. We'll put it there. So that's the hole that I'm going to put a jump ring in order to hang this as a pendant. So let's take a look at this in our viewport, in our perspective viewport. Ooh, look at that. So knowing that, that I'm going to use 3 different materials, I think that I would like the back to be like an opaque red. The middle, I would like to be transparent. And I think I want the top to be transparent too, because I think it'll kind of create another visual interest having that opening of the opaque red shining through the transparent, maybe purple, to the transparent blue. So I'll have to buy 1 sheet of opaque red, 1 sheet of transparent purple, and 1 sheet of transparent blue. That's, you know, and I would put that over here in my shopping list and say opaque red back. Let's spell, shall we, Barb? Okay. Opaque red for the back. Middle, transparent purple. And then the top, and then the middle top is transparent blue. Okay, so, and this is good to know if somebody else has to cut my file. Using the notes tab that you have in Rhino is really super helpful because this always stays with the file. So if I sent this file to a grad student to cut this stuff out for me, he or she would know or they would know which layer is which. Okay, so, and the fact that the color of the layers coordinates to the Claire, is there a list of colors we can buy? Yes, I'm going to show you a place where you can buy them. It's called Canal Plastics, and we will definitely talk about that. Another great question, because there's also another place in the city called Everything Plastic, and they are located on it's 2nd Street between Spring Garden and Callow Hill. And they're a little more expensive than Canal Plastics, but if you run out of time, you can totally go there and just buy a couple pieces of plastic. They also have a scrap bin that's pretty awesome, which is really cheap. Let me see, is the blue circle around the center because you want it cut out, and will it show up on the final product? The blue circle is around the center because that's one of my layers. And I'm actually going to demonstrate to you how you can visualize that. But that's also, a good question, because if you don't know about this file, then it may be confusing if you opened it up. If you were, say, that grad student who I asked to cut this out for me. So let's use a command to visualize this. I'm going to buy, let's say I'm going to buy 0.125 thickness acrylic sheet. So 0.125 is 1/8 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch is 0.25. That's kind of thick. I'd like it to be thin because this isn't giant, and I'd like it to still be reasonably light for this pendant that I want to make. So let's go to the red piece, and we're going to go up to the solid menu. Everybody can still see this? Okay, good. And we're going to extrude that planar curve straight. All right, and we're going to, now what it's asking me here, and by the way, let me move this up so we can see more of the actual. It's now asking me for extrusion distance. And what I'm going to put in here is 0.125. That's how thick my, and let's see here. In the perspective viewport, we're going to go with ghosted. And the reason we're doing that is so that I can see these solids. If we have it on wireframe, you can see that it's a little confusing. Is there or is there not a solid there? So I like to look at things for the most part in ghosted or shaded or rendered. Rendered tends to show things as if they're in a snowstorm. So I like ghosted because even things that are solid, you can kind of see through them. So that's great. I'm going to take that solid though. I'm going to grab it in my right-hand viewport, and I'm going to take it and move it down just a tiny bit. All right. I can, okay, and it broke my history by dragging. So that means that if I go back and edit anything as far as those curves that created this piece, remember how I showed you about record history? I may not be able to now. So now I can take this middle layer, and I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the solid menu. I'm going to go to extrude planar curve and go straight. And again, you see how the extrusion distance is 0.125. It took the last one that I used. I'm going to hit enter. And there we go. But you know what? Oh, man, my active layer is the red. So I want to go here into this solid again. And I am going to change that to the middle layer. So this way I can visualize. And I also wanted this. We're going to move this. And I'm going to say move. We're going to move it from 0 comma, sorry, comma, 0, comma, 0. That's the point we're moving it from. And we're going to move it up. How are we going to move it up? I'm going to just go here. I'm going to hold the shift key over here. And there we go. And you can see now that that curve is actually over here. It's now on the top instead of down at the origin. Did somebody ask a question? Something? I just heard Zoom ding on me. Right. Okay. So now we're going to take that, because I want that to also be a layer. We're going to go solid, extrude planar curve, and we're going to go straight. We're going to do this in a number of our exercises. Oh, rats. I just realized that I forgot to make that. I forgot to change my active layer. So again, extrusion distance is 0.125. We're just going to hit enter. And there we go. And now if we go to our perspective viewport, this is what I'm hoping to see. Oh, you know what? I just realized when I made that back one solid, I forgot to leave that opening. Let's delete that. We're going to take this, and we're also going to take this, and we're also going to take this, because I needed those to also be cut out. So now when I do that extrusion, extrude planar curve straight, and by the way, let me make that the back. We're going to call that extrusion distance minus 0.125 so that it ends up below everybody else. Did it do that? No, it didn't. Okay. Well, we're just going to move it down. And we can see that really well in the right viewport. There we go. Move it down a tiny bit more. All right. So here's what I was hoping. And this is what I was looking for. I wanted to be able to see through this transparent layer and this transparent layer, the blue one, to that hole that I left in the red transparent layer. I mean, not super sophisticated, but you know, visually it should be something interesting. And because I had that hole and the opening here. Now, for your piece, you do not have to extrude anything. I'm only showing you this entire thing so you can visualize how your pieces will fit together. All right, really, all you need. Now, here's what I would do here is I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it in a new sublayer. And this is going to be solid. Whoop, not sold, solid. And that's where I'm going to put that piece. And we're going to change that object layer. Oh, you know what? That solid layer wasn't red. Let's make it red. Okay. And same with the middle layer. I'm going to make another sub layer, but this way I can hide that solid and I can just see my curves again. I'll show you why in a minute. I'm going to cut this out for you guys when I demonstrate the laser cutter. And again, we're going to want purple. Let's make it like, I like how you can change the colors of these layers pretty well. Let's do that. Okay, and we're going to take this. I'm going to make sure that that goes into that sublayer. And then the same with the blue solid. We're going to go top layer. We've got a new sublayer. We're going to call that solid as well. And we're going to move that into there. And again, I got to change the color of the layer. Let's go with this blue here. All right. So now, does everyone understand what my piece is eventually going to look like? It is about 6 by 6. I'm looking at it in the perspective viewport because I'm looking at, okay, so this is how I'm going to have to glue it together. Am I gluing it together? Is that the only option I have? I can also rivet this together. I could put some rivets. I could glue this piece to the blue piece to the purple piece, and then I could rivet this one, maybe just in 3 places. Maybe I'll want to rivet it here, here, and here. That's a thought. Riveting is taking a tube or a piece of thick metal wire, drilling a hole, and we don't drill holes for the riveting in the laser. The laser gets really unreliable if you do anything too small. And small holes like that have a tendency to not be cut through completely. So you have to kind of punch them through anyway, and you often end up cracking your acrylic. So the best thing to do if you're going to rivet is to measure your rivet wire and find the appropriate drill bit, and then rivet it as you would as if it was a piece of metal. And I'll show you guys about that. Claire, I see you have another. How did you select the 2 holes? Okay, to add to the back, is that what you mean? So I'm going to hide all these solids now. And we're going to go back to there. So the way I selected it was I selected the outside, then I held down Shift. Any of you who've worked in other graphic programs or even like Word, when you hold down Shift, usually that allows for multiple selections. So now I have all 3 of those together. And then I took those and did the extrude planar curve straight, and then I was able to do it. And it kept those holes in it. All right. One thing that's important when you extrude is it's really important to have a, even if you choose the solid menu, if you don't have a closed curve, for instance, let's take this here and we'll make a curve here. And if I go to the solid menu and I say extrude planar curve straight, and I choose this and I go enter, it's not going to be solid because it's not closed. Okay, and if I took, let's delete that because this happens in some of our exercises. Let's say we take this and we mirror it, okay, to make a heart. Look at that, haha, Valentine's Day is coming. So I have these and I'm going to rotate them like this, okay. Now, if I chose both of these and then did solid menu, extrude planar curve straight, there we go. Wow, it actually did solid. That's not supposed to work. I wonder, did these get joined? No, they're separate curves. But it made a, what is that? Is that an open? So let's go to our properties panel, which is right here. And that says closed extrusion. Oh, isn't that interesting? This may help you guys with some of your exercises. There are a number of exercises where you create curves, and at the end of all the curves that you're creating, usually you'll be following a schematic. If they're not joined when you extrude them, then they show up as a surface. The other thing is that there is another spot to do extruding planar curves. Actually, let's just get rid of the extrusion. Where you have your solid menu and then you have your surface menu. And here we go, extrude curve straight. It's almost identical to extrude planar curve straight. So what's the difference? With this one in the surface menu, you're only going to get a surface. Okay, see how that, and let me show you. See how it looks like a cookie cutter? It has no volume at all. And because we had 2 of them, 2 curves, even though they were together, they were not joined. All right, so that's, I'm getting off in the weeds. But what we need to cut with the laser cutter is just these layers. It's just these curves. And what I would do is when we go to cut at the laser cutter, I'll get my opaque, and I'm going to show the laser cutter bed here. I'm going to get my opaque red and I'm going to measure it. And I will, oh, by the way, did that answer your question, Claire, about how I selected those 2 holes? Just holding down shift. Great. Thank you for the thumbs up. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll hide the middle layer and we'll hide the top layer. We'll go over to the laser cutter and I will demonstrate all that on hopefully Monday. If not, it'll be the following Monday. But it is important that I show you guys how this works. But basically, the laser cutter works as a printer. It's taking the information here, and instead of printing it to paper, it controls the laser cutter, the laser head that is run by the machine on top of the your materials. So if I were going to cut this, I would go File, Print, and in the print dialog, which is not show, oh, there it is. Okay, in the print dialog over here, we would have listed our universal laser. And then there, before we send it there, we have to look at the output. The output has to be a vector. Black and white is fine, but this is the super important part, and I can show you this now. View and output scale. First of all, we're working out of the top viewport. We want the scale to be 1:1, always 1:1. If it's not 1:1, then it'll try and fit your piece and scale it, and it won't be the exact size that you need it to be for your design. So here we have, and a lot of times we use basic paper printers to check the sizes of our things. And if we print them out 1:1, then we'll know how big they are. And we'll get to this when we get to our ring. So, but it's not showing up in the piece of paper or the bed size if it's the laser cutter. So we'll hit set. Here we're looking at drag to define window. Wait a minute. I'm going to hit enter. So we need to move the window. But we don't want it to be, there we go. That's the size of our piece of paper. And then we can also drag this around too, if we're printing out the piece of paper, or we'll have a, we will have a representation of the laser cutting bed in the dialog when we're next to the laser cutter. We'll hit enter. And then at that point, we'll hit print. And print will send it to the laser cutter, and then we pull up our laser cutter driver. And that I cannot show you. Oh geez, are you kidding me? This is I can't believe this Microsoft stuff shows up in the middle of all this. Okay, and then the laser cutter driver will then control the rest of the process. So I'm going to hit close, but it is important that you use that print dialog to send out your design to the laser cutter. Now, okay, so I send it out to the laser cutter, we cut the red. That's great. Okay, what I'm going to do then is I would then move to the middle layer and I'll hide the red layer. And you can see that again, you know, I'll put my other material in. This is why it's important to have these in layers. That's how we control what parts we're exporting to the laser cutter. So here we go. And then we have the top layer. And we'll hide the other layer. And what I'll be able to do too is when I get that dialog, I can totally like drag it over to here so I don't waste a lot of material. When I have that transparent blue material, maybe it was expensive and maybe I want to use more of it. Or maybe me and my friend bought it together to save money because we both needed transparent blue. So we bought one sheet of it. I want to put mine all the way up here in the corner of that transparent piece. Maybe my piece is 12 by 12, right? 12 to 12. Okay. And so I'm looking at, whoop, and I'm in the perspective. I really want to be in top. So I'm taking this and I'm going to figure out where that's going to go on my material. And it's good to have a Rhino representation of that. So because maybe my friend's piece, man, she uses up so much. Maybe her piece is like this big. And I need to make sure that, you know, I get my itty bitty little blue circle out of there before she cuts her giant rectangle. And we can both use Rhino to figure out whether or not we can get both of our pieces onto our 12 by 12 blue transparent. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Undo, undo, undo. Okay, and we'll bring back up our cut. And I'm going to save this file. I should have saved it long before here, because if Rhino went down, I would have been up a creek and I'd have to redesign it all again. Save your files regularly. Having to go back and then redesign something that you've already done. Now, granted, you know, when you redesign things multiple times, you usually get better at it, or you figure out how to do it better the next time. But I'm going to call this flower layers example. Okay, right now I'm saving it not in my downloads. I'm going to put it in my desktop. And that's good right there. And I'll transfer that up to my Google Drive later so that I can reach it when we meet on Monday. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And wondering if you guys had any other questions. Because next I'm going to show you canal plastics. All right, and I'm going to share again. Okay, don't see any other questions. You guys are all good. Okay, we're going to share the screen. Where am I at? New tab, Google Chrome. Here we go. All right. Canal plastics. All right. Acrylic store online. Let's see, is it showing up? Yeah, it is. Okay, good. Acrylic sheets. All righty. So these sheets are, you can get them in different dimensions. You can see, look at this iridescent acrylic sheet. Pretty, huh? Let's get on that. You can get it as small as 6 by 12. You can actually get these little 2 by 2 samples, or you can get a full sheet, 48 by 96. That's 4 feet by 8 feet. Wow. You can get custom sizes, but usually they'll charge extra to cut things for you. 6 by 12, if 6 inches wide and 12 inches, that's, let's see what that cost. And if we just say 1, oh, okay, first I have to choose the thickness. This only comes in 1/8 of an inch. And notice it says 0.118, and 1/8 of an inch is 0.125. So it's not exactly 1/8 of an inch, which is why before we put anything in our laser cutter to cut, we measure it with a set of calipers to make sure that we understand the exact thickness of it, because the laser needs to know that, and will adjust its height and power accordingly. So let's say we wanted one of these, and it looks like that is $8.95 for the smallest piece of it. Let's say we wanted a 12 by 12. Let's see what a 12 by 12 is $17.90. Okay, so the smallest you can get this is like $9 for a 6 by 12 sheet. Let's go back to acrylic sheets. What do we got? Here's mirror, a mirror acrylic sheet. Yes, you can use a mirror. Yes, no, it will not harm the laser. It doesn't have enough of a reflection, and we can also cut it on the other side. So 6 by 12, that's $4.50. So you can see that the cost of these is, it's reasonable, but it all depends on what you're picking. And like I said, if you have a friend in the class, and you would like to, and you both want to get the same, turquoise opaque acrylic sheet. Look, that one starts at $3.50. That's probably for the 6 by 12. Yeah, not bad. And some of these come in 1/4 inch thickness. So if you think you want to play with thickness, that's a good thing too. You can look at getting a 1/4 inch, and samples are $1. Claire's already all over this. Great. Good deal. Yeah. So how big are the samples? Are they the 2x2s? Let me see. Yeah, okay. So 2 inches by 2 inches is not going to give you a lot. That's going to be, I would not suggest that you buy a bunch of 2-inch samples. And just because you want to have a little room around the edge of your piece. And let's take a look at what 2 inches, you know, well, we can look at it when we get in on Monday. We'll have some, yeah. So, and Eiley asked if you can use colored plastic for the project. Absolutely, you can. We also usually have a scrap bin in our wood shop. Another reason to be in person. When we get in on Monday, I'll show you where that is. And if you find anything in there that you want, you can just take it. A lot of times when people cut things out, they'll just throw their scraps in the bin instead of throwing them away. We try to recycle as much as we can in the department. And a lot of times where you have your scraps, it's really helpful to your fellow students if you don't throw things away and just put them into the bin. Because sometimes people do buy stuff for projects and they're never going to use it again. But with that in mind, one of the things that that is included in your course fee is clear acrylic for this project. Like I said, you get about a 12 by 12, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, you know, depending on your project. I try to stretch that stuff out as much as I can, but that is included in your course fee. So don't feel like you have to spend a whole lot of money to do an interesting project. It's just that you're limited to clear. But as you saw with some of the examples I gave you, you can work with colored inks, you can work with acrylic paint to create new and different patterns that are strictly your own. All right, so this is Canal plastic. Let's also look at everything plastic. As I said, they are a little more expensive. 444 North 2nd Street. They even have a parking lot for those of us who are driving. It's a great thing. Oh my gosh, what is this? Not their actual website. Where's their website? Oh, there's their website. Oh, yes, I don't want Yelp, thank you. Yeah, so they do fabrication, and raw materials are really what we go there for mostly, but they will totally create things for you. Okay, so acrylic. They have but this is one of the cool things. They've got acrylic rod, they've got acrylic tubes, acrylic shapes. They have other plastic as well. You can see they have coroplast. You know, they've got these, you know, cutting boards, which is really different. Okay. But you've got a lot of different, you can get 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch optics frosted. They've got this really cool, and Canal Plastics has it too. Let me put on here. One of the really fun acrylic sheets that you could get are the ones that are like these fluorescent edge. Let me see, mint green featured products. Okay, let's just go to acrylic sheets. So where are they at? Yellow, transparent, like the fluorescence. So like this guy, what's really fun about this is that on the edge, it seems to glow. And you guys have probably seen stuff like this. And actually some of the examples in the pieces that I showed you, but it's hard to catch in photos, but it's really, it's really striking in person. So, all right. I think that's about, I mean, I think I've talked enough today. I usually, most of the time my demos aren't this long, but we did have a lot to go over here today as far as designing for introducing the project, and then talking about where you can get supplies outside of Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Also going to, okay, I figured I would resume the recording since there were a couple questions that came up in the one-on-ones. And before I let you guys go for the day, I did want to answer that in case any of you are wondering. So first of all, I will show you about how to do engraved lines on Monday. It's just a question of changing the color of your lines just before they go to the laser cutter. That's actually something I like to show right at the laser cutter. Otherwise, it can get confusing in the different layers because your lines have to be red to be cut and your lines have to be blue to be engraved. But more details about that on Monday. The other question was sketches. Your sketches do not have to be in Rhino for Monday. I want you to have at least, 2 or 3 ideas, 2 or 3 different ideas that you can start to think about how they would go. And we'll talk about those in person. And as I mentioned, we will be in person on Monday. I will see all you guys in the CAD lab. That is 220B. If you haven't been there before, it's the 2nd floor. It's in the metals jewelry department. And when you go through the double doors into the jewelry department, it is the 2nd door on the left. It is a little sticky, push hard. Any other questions from the whole class here before we?
Is it a jewelry and metal, the studio? Near it?
Say that again.
Is it a jewelry, the studio, I mean?
Yes, it's the metals jewelry CAD CAM department. Yes, area or whatever they call it, but it's metals jewelry. And yes, that is a lot of what we're working with. We're going to be making jewelry this semester. There are lots of examples of jewelry. We have a lot of very jewelry oriented displays. We have a huge collection of amazing stuff in the hallway right outside of our CAD lab that we can look at for inspiration and ideas and demonstration of different techniques. It's a really wonderful space to work in. And I'm really glad that we're going to be back in there on Monday. So any other questions? Okay. Yep. Yeah, the jewelry, you go up 2nd floor, it's back right past administration. Okay, I'm going to let you guys go. I'll be hanging around a couple minutes afterwards if anybody needs anything. And I guess I will see you all in person Monday. Yay!
Thank you.